There we go. So say again what you said about acknowledgement. This is, get it from the
Okay.
start. Uh,
Okay, so when it comes to acknowledgement, and the reason this came up is because I'm working on a section in my book called Acknowledging Our Truths. Okay.
yes.
And so as I'm setting up all of, the process that as I see it, as I've understand it and experienced it, it starts with awareness. Then we move to acknowledgement, acceptance, and then application.
Yes, 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 yes. You got a quadruple A there. Fantastic.
Yeah. So then when it comes to acknowledgement, like I said, say if I'm needing to acknowledge a very difficult truth, something that I am uncertain about and I'm arguing with myself over it, maybe my ego is trying to tell me, oh, you don't need to work out. But then my physical, sensible self is going, yes, but I do, because it's difficult to climb stairs, get groceries. So we're
Yes,
arguing with ourselves. But then
yes,
we have this truth that we need to acknowledge.
exactly.
And trying to do that, though, I feel like that there was more than just asking ourselves the difficult questions, that there were
Yes,
actual applications, tasks.
yes, they are. They are. They are.
And I
Okay.
was brain stuck on what those tasks
Yes,
were.
yes, yes, yes. So yes, obviously journaling is
That's
powerful
fun.
because journaling leads you to an awareness of what's going on, and
Yes.
it allows you to see continuity and pattern,
Yes.
right? Which
Right.
allows you to identify issues, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that's key. Now in that identification you can acknowledge them, but there's more to it because journaling is kind of in the present.
Uh-huh.
So which is a powerful tool, but it's basically dealing with the now.
Yeah.
The powerful tool here is also that, all right, let's assume you do see something in the now. The other mechanisms are thinking it through to the end and shifting to multiple perspectives.
See, and I thought it was about the perspectives. Okay.
Right. And multiple. This is very key because when we encounter something, our journaling identifies a problem. The first thought we think, oh, I've got a problem. I see the problem now. What's the answer?
Uh-huh.
We say, what's the answer?
Yeah, but it's not one.
Singular. And there's never, or what's the reason? No, there's very seldom one reason, one solution. There's usually, it's a complexity. There's multiple reasons why the thing happened, multiple ways to deal with it. So this multiplicity of perspective is very key. However, I want to get, those are just the tools that we can use for dealing with stuff now, but also there's more. So I've identified the issue. Okay, I'm going to use a very specific issue because hopefully Beena is going to come back on, and I want Beena to share something which is very powerful. See, there we go. Perfect, exactly. See, as I said, there's Beena coming right now.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So I'm just waiting since you come on, and I'll just recap the order.
Okay.
Brilliant. Beena, I'm glad you're here. Very good timing. It's connected to audio. I got something in my eye. Dang it. All right. Hello, Beena. Hello. Glad you're back. Very cool. So we're on the topic of acknowledgement. Yeah. I think Beena said hi.
Oh, okay. Good morning.
All right. Good morning. Brilliant. So just to recap a bit, we're on the topic of acknowledgement and the tools for acknowledging and dealing with acknowledgement and using acknowledgement and getting the value out of it. So I was saying that, yes, journaling is one such tool, but journaling is in the now and we identify what's going on now. And this is powerful. And when we do, then two of our most powerful tools are thinking it through to the end and connecting to multiple perspectives. Because typically when we journal, we see a pattern. That's the value of journaling. You can see patterns and it gives you, you can hear yourself, you get awareness on yourself and so on. So you can identify something that needs to be acknowledged. and you do it, but you need to also think it through to the end and shift to multiple perspectives.
Right.
Otherwise, we tend to look for an answer, singular, and this is limiting. All right, so
Right.
now I said that there's more though. When we identify a problem in the now, right, and we acknowledge that I have this problem, but it doesn't go away. So the acknowledgement is through the journaling and thinking it through, it's not going away because there's more. And to give a specific example, yeah, I'm going to use Beena. So Beena came to be aware, I guess she had awareness for a long time, but it came up in our interactions that she doesn't want to write or doesn't want to draw. She used to love drawing, but then something happened and she remembered what happened. And then, okay. So that acknowledgement initially wasn't enough because it didn't solve the problem of actually now getting back to drawing.
Right.
So one of the techniques is to pay attention. It's called the recounting of memorable events and significant experiences. That's the name of the technique, right? Like journaling, but this is a different type of journaling, right? This is the recounting of memorable events or significance or significant experiences, right?
Okay.
Now, this recounting is a very, very particular exercise, one which Beena is going to give us an example of as soon as I finished explaining. So what this is, you take whatever is a memorable event and a significant experience, and you've been doing this in your book, Sher, and you go back inside it in detail, and you write it out in detail, remembering what you thought, what you felt like, what you smelt, what you tasted, every little detail that popped into your head, no matter how seemingly insignificant it is, doesn't matter, because those
Right.
details are all tags and they all have some kind of association. So it's bringing back, you want to relive that experience, however unpleasant it may have been. However, you aren't reliving it as your me of then only. This is the important part, right?
Right.
It is to relive it with your me of then and your me of now. Because your me of then was limited. It had limited awareness, limited tools, limited expression. And it came to conclusions, reactions, understandings, which were inappropriate. But according to the me of then's knowing, it was appropriate, right?
Right.
So we can do what is inappropriate in the bigger context, but believe it to be appropriate in the bubble context, yes, which is Beena's story is going to illustrate. But
Okay.
I'm sharing this as this is an incredibly powerful tool for acknowledging, not only acknowledging the problem, but the cause.
Okay.
So Beena acknowledged the problem, which was, I encouraged Beena to write and make posts. He says, yeah, but I don't like writing. I don't want to write. I don't want to share. And then it was also, I don't remember if that was the very first part of it, Beena, but anyway, I'm just saying, as an example of this. So, and the same thing with the drawing, So
Okay.
she acknowledged, but acknowledgement was not enough to acknowledge just the problem. We also have to look at the cause sometimes in order to come to resolution. Because if we don't acknowledge that when the time when the problem started, we have to acknowledge that we made inappropriate associations. We made inappropriate beliefs. We created new beliefs because of this, right? Which we'll see in Beena's story. And also we set new intents. Back then, we have to acknowledge the beliefs, the new motivations, the new intents, the new associations, the new assumptions. We have to acknowledge all of that to get to capital R resolution. Very powerful. Very, very, very powerful. All right. So, Beena, will you please share screen and read your story again? Beena's busy doing exactly this. A recounting of a memorable event and a significant experience in her life, right? So please, Beena, if you don't mind, will you read and share again? Yeah.
Oh, no, definitely. It is incomplete, Sher, but it's still because this is how we are just, it's not about the conclusion. Yeah, of course, the resolution is important, but the process is much, much more important than
Exactly.
conclusion of it.
Exactly. Exactly.
So this the story named by Sil, Poison Apple. Okay. I didn't had any name. Once they were like NBA players, now hidden like seven dwarfs. My feelings. Eyes lost in the distance, mind searching my isness, body searching for those lost feelings. Once like giant players, super hyper, jumping, running, chasing, pushing every other thought, confirming their existence and nothing else. Awkward silence is worse when it's internal, especially when overwhelm and chaos are permanent residents for years. Feeling alone, I desperately tried to connect my then feelings important to me. Mrs. Kazi was in our classroom as a substitute teacher in the absence of Miss Tariq. Kazi, a middle aged woman, generally soft spoken. I didn't know much about her, but nothing obviously negative. 8:30 a.m. I looked outside the window. Sacred fig tree, as full as of sobriety as always. Leaves waving like hundreds of silver hands clapping silently to praise sun. Mesmerized by this kaleidoscopic view, I was about to sleep, and Kazi suddenly ordered us to draw something. What can be more exciting for me? I love to draw. All my sleepiness hanging on the tree outside. Pulling my sketchbook out, I was looking at Kazi for more instructions. But to my surprise, she said, "Do draw whatever you like." What? The day must be special. All good things are happening. Excited I was, feeling that sensation of blank pages. Wasting no time, I knew what I wanted to draw. Complete immersion in my drawing, a magic spell, which makes everything disappear other than me and my drawing. Colors, soft colors. I smiled inside, keen outside. Don't know how all those great artists felt when painting their masterpieces. Me, nothing exists other than colors and immersing, enveloping energy of drawing something I wanted. Applying colors on paper was and still is an interactive process, an exchange of energy back and forth. But at that time, I was not able to say all these in words, only pure immersion and absolute pleasure. Like colors, time was slipping from my hands. Pazi starts calling our names to get the drawings checked. Enforced by the call, I had to stop doing. But look at this. My heart was jumping like crazy, eyes admiring my own creation. I presented my drawing with subtle pride. A big apple, shining red, with some pale stars, dots, a shimmering yellow streak falling down like a waterfall, a tiny stem and a leaf adding more beauty. That apple, a symbol of life, full, lush, ripe life. But that was not all I was happy for. A happy worm, the chief constituent of the whole drawing. For me, the joy and happiness of that worm was most important. The smile of that worm, contagious. Smiling connectedly with that tiny joy, I put my sketchbook in front of Kazi. Much like other usual public school teachers, Kazi had a stern face, tired body, and the strong energy balls around herself. She was busy signing other books and she saw my drawing. For a moment, I saw some expression on her face. Unusual. She is alive, was my immediate thought. She looked at me, looked again at my drawing. Something was definitely off. She lifted my sketchbook, turning it towards the class. All the students were busy chatting. Silence, and look here. Those moments, sluggish, no thought, no feeling, just standing there without saying anything. I was experiencing void. Look what Beena has done. A brief silence, then laughter. The whole classroom was laughing. Kazi too was smiling. Not a bad smile she had. Standing there next to her table, I looked at Kazi. She looked at me. Another proof of her being alive. Her eyes had some expression too. Wow. Shoving the sketchbook in my hand, she didn't say a word. But I saw something strange in her eyes: disgust, anger, disconnect, humiliation. Walking back to my desk was the heaviest walk ever for me. All the proper girls were making sure I should know something about myself. What exactly? What must I understand about myself that I'm not aware of? Unknown pain pierced my body. Where exactly, I didn't know. Again, everything was diluting and turning into question marks. No clear sight, no understandable sound, everything losing their edges and getting bigger. My desk, Azi's face, students' mouths, walls, everything was inflating. But why? What have I done wrong? Is that apple not beautiful? I looked at it again. Again, I love its fullness, its firm roundness. That worm was happy, appreciating the sweet, juicy treat. I could feel how energizing that meal was for the worm. But why were they laughing at me? Why that disgust in their eyes? Unable to comprehend those expressions, I was wondering why Kazi was not enjoying her first alive movements. Questions, unresolved questions. And this pain in the eyes? The disconnect has started. I tried to rub my eyes and realized it was pain of those trapped tears. Now they were free to slide on my cheeks. Not every freedom gives you joy. Some give you a reminder to hide every sign of being alive. That worm was still smiling, apple as red as before. Then what has changed? Me? Now red haunted. That yellow streak, a lurking snake. And worm, nothing but a symbol of stupidity, a symbol of decay, and most important, symbol of outcast. Sacred fig tree is still there. Only now I realize its leaves were waving, but no magic. Simply an old tree standing there doing nothing, just existing, useless. Stand by this huge transformation, feeling scared by the immensity of all those unresolved questions. I became lost. Nothing stayed the same after. Dealing with incomplete without appropriate context awareness and inner silence, I was confused. Razi was now the second name of self doubt, unable to understand what is right and what is wrong, what makes something right for some and wrong for the rest. Why asking about something is bad, but doing the same thing is okay? Why does something exist and everybody is aware of it, but mentioning it is a social sin? Heard and saw people wondering why she's so dumb. She's 11 years, not a kid anymore. Those uncles and aunties were right. All my peers were aware, and all girls were proper. Why I'm the odd one? All my questions, hammered by self doubt, bent inward. My damaged self was unable to find any other perspective other than accept the obvious and convenient one. Something is wrong with me. Acceptance is a creation mantra. When we accept, we create that same reality for ourselves. For years, that was my reality. Every heartbeat was just an echo of that mantra. All my actions, reactions, and perceptions were tinted with self doubt. I learned to play small and forged pride out of it. Besides all my lackings and shortcomings, still I'm able to do something. Was my life to you? Floating on the surface only, I shunned my feelings. Nothing goes deeper because I don't allow myself to go deeper because it's painful to feel. It is painful to understand. I need so much more to go through all that pain again to be able to shift or create a new reality. Happy in my cocoon, limited self, limited understanding means limited responsibility. Life was comfortably safe, but for a short period of time. Something happened, and again I was in a void, overwhelmed by duality and contradictions. Again, I was 11 years old, asking the same questions: what I have done wrong, why saying something else and doing something different is okay for some. How could I know that saying and doing don't have to be the same, etc. This time I decide to not only shut that door, but build a wall there, a wall with bricks of numbness. of all of I don't feel it. Drawing is foolish, a waste of time. I don't know how to draw or paint. Art of any type has no place in my life. It's embarrassing and painful. There is no magic in this world. I was poisoned and I was conditioned. Trying to fit in, my struggle was to survive, not actually understanding, just following the so called norms of society. Feelings were long lost treasure. Numbness was a new companion. Together, we were walking in this world unaffected, quite a success. Days following each other, turning into months, months to years. Okay.
Is that where you stop
Very
there?
cool, very cool, very cool. So, Sher, before you share any reaction, I was wanting Beena to share because this is what you've been doing. So I'm not, but I wanted Beena to share so that you can hear your own process, but from an external perspective, right? When you see it in somebody else, it's easier to get more perspective on what you do yourself, right? You've been sharing
Yes.
similar significant experience and memorable events.
Mhm.
So in the, viewing it from externally, it gives us that abstract overview perspective of the process. And you can see this, how the process here, Beena going into the detail, reliving the experience, re-feeling that pain. That's the point I want to emphasize, right?
Yes.
So part of acknowledgement involves that, yes, we might need to re-feel that pain in
Yes.
order to really understand and comprehend it. This is an important part of acknowledgement, yes?
Right. Right.
Once you face and deal with the awful truth, it becomes the awesome truth. The other reason I wanted Beena to do this is because earlier Robin was on and she read the story to Robin. So in the multiple sharing of the story, Beena, every time you read the story, it becomes a lot easier, yes?
Yes, of course, because of practice also.
Exactly. I mean, we've been going over it in the editing. We haven't finished the editing yet, but we've been rereading it multiple times. But it's very powerful, right? To
Right.
have that. So
Right.
part of acknowledgement is also repetition.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I have a question for Beena.
Yes.
Are you going to redraw the apple with the worm?
I've already drawn that one, so I will share with you.
Okay.
Because first I started with that.
Exactly. I recommended when this started to come up, I said, Beena, she started writing a bit or wanted to write. I said, draw it and then write from the drawing. So yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to see whether or not you did and what you felt about it when you drew it. So
Exactly. Brilliant, Sher. Brilliant.
Let
Perfect
me,
question.
because I deliberately try to draw as same as I draw at that time. That was something. Okay, let me share something. So I didn't deliberately try to make it more realistic or nothing, just exactly as I tried to draw at that time. So, yes, here it is.
oh my gosh, it's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. So Beena
look at
needs
the
to
worm.
add into the story the eat me. When she first drew it, she drew it without the eat me. She forgot about it. And she remembered, hey, but why did I wrote eat me on there? So she had to add it afterwards. And the same in the story. It's also forgotten. So you have to add it into the story, which it's a very fun.
Oh, but I really like that. I love the smile on the worm.
Oh, me too. It's so brilliant that. It's so brilliant that. Yes.
This is exactly how I draw that. For me, that worm was happy and I was happy to draw that and I was happy for that worm. And
So-
for me, that the disgust for my teacher was that invitation that eat me an apple with a worm. And everybody was thinking of me as a fool, that what you are doing, it's disgusting, it's yaks. So, and I was unable to understand that.
Okay. So I guess, that's really, for me, that's really a sad testament to their lack.
Exactly. Exactly.
How-
Exactly.
That's kind of sad.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, look at what happened for Beena. She changed her beliefs. She
Yeah,
changed her reaction. She changed
yes,
her intent. She changed her associations. And this is the thing to acknowledge. What
yes,
changed? What did you do as a result of the experience that was inappropriate? So acknowledgement in this instance here, in the context that you're using it, almost always boils down to an acknowledgement of inappropriateness. The teacher was inappropriate. The other students were inappropriate. And Beena was grossly inappropriate in giving
yes,
their behavior legitimacy when it wasn't. It was totally, irrational, illogical, unreasonable, illegitimate behavior from the teacher, cueing the students and them doing this, right? So all their behavior was inappropriate. And of course, Beena's response to it, feeling ashamed and guilty and self-questioning and I'm wrong and all this, all inappropriate. If we cannot acknowledge that inappropriateness, then the resolution, the acknowledgement won't really lead to resolution. Right? So
okay, so
this is the key for acknowledgement. Yes.
I have a question on that though, because my thoughts go to um, a gentle acknowledgement of, instead of
Exactly.
instead of saying, well, okay, yeah, it was inappropriate that you were ashamed of yourself, you were a child. So how are you going to
Yes.
know that it was inappropriate? So giving yourself grace and compassion for
Exactly.
feeling what you felt in those moments is going to help release.
Exactly. It's not a criticism. It's
Right.
simply an acknowledgement.
Okay.
Acknowledgement is awareness without judgment, criticism, labeling, anything like that, right?
Right.
Without
Right.
an emotional baggage.
Yes.
Acknowledgement is precisely that. It is appreciation and awareness and acceptance without the emotionality attached.
Yeah.
Yes?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I
Yeah.
guess I was just clarifying that in my own head,
Yeah.
going, well, wait a minute,
Yeah.
though.
So
We don't want to
acknowledgement is
call
simply
ourselves inappropriate
acknowledging.
as children.
Right, right. It's acknowledging the truth of it. When we
Yeah.
were children, everything we did was inappropriate from an adult perspective,
From an
right?
adult perspective. Yeah.
That's why it's me of now and me of then. What she did is also part of acknowledgement. It's not only to acknowledge the inappropriate, but also to acknowledge the appropriateness.
Right.
In that circumstance, in the world that she was in, if she had not felt ashamed and embarrassed, whatever, that would have made her such a target like you wouldn't believe. Yes?
Okay.
So it's also appropriate at the same time.
Right.
Yeah, it's what she was supposed to do. In a
Okay.
conformist society, the moment you don't do what you're not supposed to do, or sorry, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, you become a target. You stand out. You're a
Yeah.
nonconformist. You're a rebel. You're a wrongness. You evil even, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
don't do what is appropriate in the context, and appropriate in inverted commas, right? In other words,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't do what you should do and supposed to be, this is very dangerous. So in the longer, bigger picture, Beena's behavior, that reaction, saved her from being identified as different and unusual, which she was, profoundly so, and saved her from a greater hell by making herself less and anonymous and private. She saved herself from that being targeted as a rebel, as a different, as a nonconformist, as being evil or bad or whatever. I saw this happen to kids, right? They got hidings every day, but they also fought the system. They said, no, you're wrong. And they were right, of course, but the system wouldn't allow it, right? So there is an
Now.
inappropriateness and an appropriateness. It's contextual, and we need to acknowledge the contextuality of the situation, both the inappropriateness and the appropriateness, and how in the context both applied and how they do not apply now.
Right. Okay. Right.
Because the situation has changed. So part of acknowledgement is inappropriateness, appropriateness, and contextuality.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Very key part. So these are profound tools for acknowledgement. Yes. thinking it through to the end, multiple perspectives. Multiple perspectives here is inappropriate, appropriate, and context. Yes, the context. Then the context now. That's why going over as a tool, well, you can do this in your journaling too, is to look at the different contexts. Okay, I'm journaling today. I'm in a bubble. You know what? I'm writing about what happened yesterday. Oh, I was in such a bubble. So to acknowledge, bubble context, bigger context, overview perspective, this is very important. And to say,
Yes.
wow, you know what? I only looked at it from one angle, not multiple. Oh, that's where my problem was. Okay, so contextual awareness and acknowledgement is at least contextual awareness, and that there are multiple contexts that apply. This is very, very, very important for acknowledgement. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Powerful tool. Powerful, powerful, powerful tool.
Okay. So awareness. Okay.
And of course,
Got it.
when you zoom out and you look at it from perspectives other than your own, which is why I was asking Beena to read a story, because you've got tons, you've got a whole book full of these stories, right? I mean, I could have asked you to share any of your stories, but seeing somebody else's profound experience, their memorable event, their significant experience, and they're sharing it in this particular way, this acknowledging way, acknowledging what happened, acknowledging the pain. And Beena went more than just the embarrassment. She was sharing how she that was the start of her disconnect, the start of being lost, the start of removing herself, not feeling.
Yes.
She want to feel, because if you feel, you can have those feelings crushed, and this leads to pain. So it's that cause and effect, right? So all of this is in that story, because Beena is going through it in complete, full detail, sharing the whole story. And this is very important, right? And it's sharing from me of now and me of then. Yeah, very important, the both together.
I had another question for you, Beena, if you're still there.
Yes.
Did you ever name any of those parts of yourself, your younger self? Did you ever give that younger self a name when you were referring to that time in your life, or was that something you just completely put away and didn't want to think about anymore?
Not actually name, but yes, titles. Like,
titles.
she was, yes, she was the down one. She was the lost.
Yeah, that's the same as naming it. Yeah, same thing.
Yes, and also it's a contradiction there, because my whole understanding or awareness was kind of like a contradiction, because I knew and I was aware that I understand more than what other people can understand. But because I was so pushed by other people's cueing, so it was a contradiction. I was aware that I'm not dumb, I know what people are saying, but when they deny, or when they do something else or say something completely different, and other people just accept everything, then I was a living contradiction in myself also. So at my one aspect of myself was aware that I'm not dumb, and I acknowledge that too, that yes, I know. But understanding and that awareness was so overwhelming, and it was dangerous, because I was not able to communicate exactly. I was a big mouth from the very early age. This is what I heard from mama. Oh, she's a big mouth, because I was not hesitating about asking question, that, oh, if someone was saying
not
something
only
in
not
front of
asking questions, but also of expressing your opinion, even if it was something that wasn't, socially acceptable.
Because it's, and sometimes like very trivial thing, like, okay, some relative or someone, I saw them doing something else, and when they come and they say something else, I said, but you were doing this. And then of course everybody feels embarrassed and not like very
Pointing
awkward
out the
situation.
hypocrisy, in other words, right, Beena?
And yes, and that was, I was not understanding that why, if someone was doing something, and now they're saying something different, how can I not say that? My question was about myself, that why doing is okay, but mentioning it is not okay. And it's like a sin. That was my mind never being able to comprehend that. And still I struggle with that, because whenever something happened, I try to ignore, avoid, but when the things becomes like really pressing, I say things. And when I say, people like, oh, you, how you were saying that, you were rude, you were this, and but I said, you were doing, I'm just mentioning it. And when someone
He's
is
just being
doing is
honest.
not rude,
Yeah.
Exactly.
yeah,
I feel
it's
you.
not rude.
Everything you're saying,
Yes.
I feel like.
Doing is not rude, doing is not bad, but just saying and mentioning it
Yes, ma'am.
is wow, the
Yes,
most
ma'am.
horrible sin.
Yes, ma'am.
So cool, so cool, so cool.
And still I get puzzled with that. So sometimes I just said, okay, I don't want to see, even though I'm seeing it, I'm not seeing it. I don't want to connect with with people, because if I will actually connect, I would see more, I would feel more, and then it will create a problem. And that is the biggest cause, because people were asking me that why you are not in relationship, why you were never been in a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want to connect with people on a more deeper level, because then I will see those contradictions and my mind will not understand, and then I will get puzzled and I will get confused, and then things will start getting worse or confused. So that this is I'm just avoiding that.
Yes. Yes. So let me ask you this.
Yes.
By the way, this is a fascinating discussion. Okay, so if you're if this has to do with naming of the story. We were just talking about names before we got onto that part right there.
Yes.
How labels and names can repress our feelings, actually.
Yes.
So what?
Yes.
Big,
How do you think
big time.
Okay, so how do you think your story, as you're writing it, as you're expressing it, how do you feel now writing it from the perspective of a poison apple? Were you able to write it more freely without a title?
Okay. No, because this is something, okay, I will share what happened. So the
Okay.
first thing I draw that apple, because drawing was the trigger, actual point. I
Right.
was not, I was restricting myself, like avoiding as much as I could. So that was the first step towards that. And when I was drawing, I was forgetting a lot of details, like that eat me part. It was completely vanished. And
Right.
then the happy part was also that I was not getting it immediately. And then still remind me, Beena, you shared with me. And I said, oh, and that because I was so disconnected for years. I was 11 years at that time. So I was so disconnected for so many years. And somehow I was feeling resolved with that. Once you feel resolved, or you create a resolution for yourself, a virtual resolution, you start getting disconnect with the details, and details are actual associations.
Right. Okay,
So
that's what I was asking.
yes, so I was losing those associations, because I had created a virtual resolution for myself that, okay, yes, this happened, and okay, whatever it is. But then when I start drawing it, I was feeling that I was deliberately connecting to that joy, that, oh, someone restricted me at that time, now I'm going to do this again. No other connection. But during that process, something happened. And then I realized that it is not just the drawing part, it is more than that.
Right.
Now, when I'm writing this story, the first was because I'm writing this story from the perspective of me of now. So for me,
Very important.
this
Yeah.
this is like I'm writing about someone else, and I'm just observing them.
Yeah.
Like you see a perspective of your dream, like the way we saw in our dream, like always. What is the perspective called? Still, you use a term for that specific term, that we always see dreams from a camera angle. Okay, yes.
Oh, right. From a third person.
Yes.
View.
Right.
Yes, third person perspective. So when I was writing that story, those details, I was writing and observing and feeling it through a third person perspective. But
And going into the first person when appropriate.
yes,
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
And when I start going there, then I got like that pain, that disgust in my body. I was feeling that. And then the realization kicks in that how much I was disconnected, how
Right.
much I was overwhelmed with those feelings. And I created a safe mechanism for myself. I don't feel it. I'm not going into, no, just keep everything in my head, not lower than that. That
Yeah.
was the whole seizure safety mechanism. I still feel emotional about this story.
Right.
Just before we
So,
came, I was sharing with Robin, and I was crying, and she was also crying. We both were crying. It is very emotional for me.
because it brought up a
It's still
similar
when I,
story for Robin. She had the same
yes, not
experience. She drew this beautiful Doberman and she went to them and it was, no good, not good enough. And it led to her thinking she's not good enough. And Robin woke up this morning with Beena on her mind, said, oh, I need to connect with Beena. So when she came
yes,
on, Beena came on a bit late. I said, oh, share the story. I knew this was going to be the connection. But anyway, it's very powerful. I want to say something very important. Part of one
yes,
of the tools, because this is our theme, right? I always come back to that center column, the theme. The theme is tools for acknowledgement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Acknowledgement tools. So acknowledgement is very important to acknowledge resolution.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what I was saying earlier, to acknowledge what changed, what new
Yeah.
intent we set, what new beliefs we acquired, what new mindset, attitudes, etc., assumptions, expectations, all of those, right?
Right.
Those resolutions at the time, but to realize and acknowledge that our resolutions of then may not necessarily be ideal resolutions. We may come to a limited resolution like Beena did. It solved the
Right.
problem, but it's not ideal. She shut herself down and didn't feel. It was a resolution then, yes, but it's
Right.
not one that you want necessarily for now. So the resolutions of then and the resolutions of now can be very different. Furthermore,
Yes.
to take it one step further, we need to be open about our resolutions we make in the present, right? So, okay, I had a problem today and I made some resolution, to always keep that openness that there might be more, right?
Right.
Right.
That's what, when she was talking about resolutions, I wrote myself a note that resolutions can cancel our feelings. We can
Exactly.
actually cancel out what we felt. Now,
Exactly.
there's something that I wanted to say about that, though, because I recognize, and I've recognized this for a long, long time, that some of what we feel feels like we should not, and I deliberately use that statement, feels like we should not draw it, think about it, talk about it. But we have to acknowledge it.
Exactly.
And you can put that in the context of the present political climate right here in America. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Talk about a huge elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about.
Yeah.
So we have that situation. And then when you talk about like things like domestic violence or sexual abuse, another elephant in the room that everybody knows about, nobody wants to talk about, because our feelings about it are repressed. We've made resolutions. We're not supposed to talk about it ever again.
Exactly. So this
Why?
acknowledgement of repression, not only repression of feelings,
Yes.
but repression of awareness, oppression
Yes.
of understanding, right? Because that's a sexual child abuse. This is
Yep.
something that people repress not only their feelings about, but their awareness about. Yeah.
Yes, 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 and yes.
This acknowledgement that we think repression is a resolution, and it's not.
Right. And here we talk about this cancel culture, and I don't think it's so much canceling out people. I think we're canceling out the ideas, the philosophies,
awareness, because it's
feelings,
painful.
Awareness, exactly. It's not a person we're canceling out. I think we're just canceling out, like I said, awareness.
Yeah. We're canceling out, to put it into one concept, we're canceling out the awful truth.
Yeah, there you go.
Whether it's a feeling or an awareness, it's the awful truth. That's what we repress, the awful truth. And because the awful truths, there were a whole bunch of them. At the time for Beena, she thought the awful truth was something's wrong with me. And, feeling, sharing my feelings, this leads to pain. That's an awful truth. So I don't share my feelings. So it's all awful truth. But when you face and deal with the awful truth, you can transform it into the awesome truth. And that's the thing that people don't realize. You have to go through that. That's why I said acknowledgement includes acknowledging the pain. There's no way to face and deal an awful truth and not feel some pain or awkwardness, uncomfortableness, disgust, whatever. Right? So that's it. So there's some pain involved in facing and dealing the awful truth. That's acknowledgement. Facing and dealing the awful truth is acknowledgement. That's what acknowledgement is, right? So,
Yeah.
all right,
I
we
feel
can
like,
acknowledge positivity. We can also acknowledge moreness, yes, and which
yeah.
includes the awful truth that if I acknowledge moreness, the awful truth is that I'm less.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's
Well,
why people don't acknowledge the mourners sometimes, because they don't want to acknowledge. They don't acknowledge others, for instance, who are more. I've
yeah.
seen this many times in my life.
Yeah.
And they don't want to
Right.
acknowledge you because that has to mean, well, I'm less by comparison. And they
Well,
don't
that's
want
where
to do that.
jealousy comes in. And we, to me anyways, that goes off into a whole nother tangent about self-comparison, which that's a whole nother ridiculous,
It's still,
you know,
it's them refusing to acknowledge the awful truth, but it
it is.
starts with refusal to acknowledge mourners in their lives, rather
Yeah.
than saying, wow, yes, mourners coming in, this is a gift, this person is sharing stuff I never even thought about. And it's like, wow, this is really cool. No, they shut down and say, I don't want to hear what you have to say because you make me feel less by comparison. They're stuck
Yeah.
in that mindset, mentality of opposites and comparative mindset. It's dreadful.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, acknowledgement also is typically, and for the most part, it's not dealing with the awful truth. And in the case of not acknowledging mourners, it's the same thing. People don't want the responsibilities, the overwhelm, whatever. Again, awful truth. So this concept of the awful truth, it is absolutely synonymous with acknowledgement. Same concept,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Exactly. It is. It is. It is. Yeah. I was, Beena, I'm,
Oh, go ahead. So I
oh,
want to
I
add
was
something.
going to say, Beena, I was just thinking about the words, the choices of how you were so descriptive
Yes.
with specific feelings. I was just really in awe of how beautifully it was written. I didn't, yes, I felt some twinges of pain, but I saw more beauty coming out in you as a person than I felt pain.
Yes, me too with the story. I feel the same.
So that was, I guess I just wanted to express that to you, that I saw a whole lot more beauty than I felt pain, because I could feel it evolving from the very beginning. And maybe that's just because I was expecting or anticipating a good ending, but that's where I started out with. It's like, oh, this is going to go someplace really awesome.
Good for you, Sher. Good for you. Good for you. Yes.
Thank you, Sher. This is, I was, okay, I need to acknowledge something here, because that incident was very, very limited time period. And I was like, okay, yes, to understand that was the root cause, one of the root causes of that whole personality developed after that.
Right.
Was a task, was a big task. It was not like, okay, oh, suddenly it was an epiphany moment and I was like, oh yes, okay, now I got it. No, it was not like that.
No.
I was pushed by Sil, yes, and I was pushed by Frauka also to go do this again, and go and see. This is what, but the actual implementation and practice of drawing was from Sil. He pushed me every single time he was pushing me. I was feeling a bit irritated sometimes, that because that was uncomfortable. That was really uncomfortable. I was trying to avoid that for so many reasons. Okay, yes. And then my smart mind actually developed another strategy. Okay, I'm doing something, I'm drawing and I'm enjoying. I will make it as beautiful as I can, and that's it. I will not connect with this. This is how I was doing it.
Yep, I know.
Yes,
Been there.
That actually really, I'm including myself in that category, that intelligent people do have a lot of escapeways and smart strategies to deal with awareness, and they actually do create some magic tricks for that.
Yeah,
We
of course
play
we do.
mind. We play amazingly well with our own mind. We create a solution. But that's why I was saying that virtual resolution, because this is something I'm going to write next about it. And I have this in my virtual resolution, creating virtual resolution. Smart people actually do that.
Yeah.
That we create virtual resolution because actual resolution is painful.
Yes, it is. It is.
So that's a key point.
So lesser evil when it comes to actually deal with an evil. So we always choose the lesser evil. Okay, yeah, exactly. I can deal with this.
We have to acknowledge that we make efforts to avoid pain and unpleasantness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Other words,
Of course we do.
Right. So one of the key tools for acknowledgement is honesty and self-honesty.
Yes.
Right. So when
Exactly.
you are saying self-honest first, and the key is that we need to say, if I'm going to be self-honest again, I have to be prepared to face the pain. But we can develop that zoomed out overview perspective that allows us to look at the pain. Yes, we feel some of it, but we don't get immersed in it. We don't get lost in it. It doesn't overwhelm us. And we can stay up here and still have the pain down there. It's not as intense. It's not so overwhelming. This
Right.
is very, very, very
Well,
important. So
as long as
acknowledgement
we
is
understand that it's
overview
temporary.
perspective.
Yeah,
Yes.
we just have to understand that it, no matter how we look at it, when we're acknowledging it with self-honesty and when we're looking at those feelings, I think it's very important to understand that if you're doing this alone without any support, you've got to remember that it is only temporary. Because otherwise we can get really, really, really lost and go into this whole gigantic existential crisis where we don't need to be.
So
Yeah, I just want to add more to it. Sorry, Sil. I just want to add more to this, Sher, because this is what I was thinking about. That in my mind, I had an impression, an idea that, okay, once I will just go through that, someone will give me a different perspective, a different insight, and then everything is going to be dissolved and my mind will be at peace and I'm going to be completely okay. No, actually, because we create like a water stream. Every incident in our life becomes a water stream. It is just coming and it is coming out again and again. So the first thing is that, oh, you try to just close it. This is what mostly we do, that at least this is what I try to do. But of course nothing works. It becomes like a volcano and that erupts. But when even someone who is guiding you, they can help you at certain level, unless or until they provide you the skill to create tools for yourself. So now you know that how to channel it, because it's an ongoing process. Once something happened, our mind has an enormous memory, an enormous database. We actually keep everything intact.
Yeah.
And it is not going to be anywhere unless you actually just wipe out everything and then reinstall everything, which is of course again an overwhelming process. So it's not only that someone is going to provide you a perspective, it's just an band-aid thing. So always say that, okay, you need to acquire tools that every single time that the water stream is still ongoing. So you need to in a proper way. So you need to create channels, you need to utilize this water, you need to use this energy source in a different way. So for me, again, it is coming back to create your own tools for yourself. Be able to create your own tools for yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, so this is acknowledging self-responsibility. That's also acknowledgement. Yes, I'm responsible not only for the cause, but for the solution, for the resolution.
Oh, yeah.
So this is very important. And also part of that is, like you said, it's me of now, me of then. But more than that, we have to acknowledge that I is more than one. Like you said, Sher, you can't do it alone. That is a very layered statement.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That alone here can mean with others or with different selves.
Well, yeah.
Right?
And then see, when it comes to, like for me, when it comes to acknowledgement, I had to acknowledge, of course, that there were multiple aspects of myself. And there were some parts of myself that were not wanting me at all to dive into any of this journey in the beginning. There were parts of me that did not want that. My ego, first and foremost, did not want it. It was like, oh, hell no, sister, you're not going to go there. There's too much pain. We don't want to do that.
Exactly.
So but then once I learned that it was safe to, I love that word, co-regulate. When I learned that it was safe to get into this stuff with co-regulation, then I also knew it was safe to use the tools.
Yeah.
Any of them.
Yeah.
But I feel like and I'm definitely writing this in my book, I am just repeatedly cautioning people, please don't do any of this alone. Make sure that you've got a support, make sure that you have somebody in your corner that knows what you're doing. Because otherwise, I mean, and I've done it, you can get sucked into a black hole that it's just too hard to climb out of by yourself.
Yes.
So
yes. But now the point I'm making is that you can use others as in a literal external person, or you can also create that internal other self. Right? So that you can be your own other.
No, I get that. But what I'm talking about still is this level of work. When you're getting into this level of inner work, this deep rooting out, like a part where I felt that I was a bad girl because, I was enjoying what my father was doing, rooting that out. If I could never have done that alone safely, I would have killed myself. So
I know.
So that's why I'm saying it's important for people to make sure that they have a system that they're co-regulating with, whether it's a small group of people or just one person. Gotta have somebody. Yeah.
Absolutely agree with you. Because still, I do feel that, okay, yes, you are an anomaly. And there are people who can actually understand things on a different and with different perspectives by themselves. But not many people can do this. Even they can do this, not many will actually
I think you take
follow that and apply it.
So let me
and
just
implement it. Yes.
Yeah. 1 second, Beena, and Sher also. I just want to make clear what I'm saying here. I'm absolutely agreeing that yes, finding assistance from external assistance is absolutely vital and critical. It's not the only option you have, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, we know that.
Or at least let me put it this way. Sometimes it's necessary, and even though it's not the only option, it's what you need to do, right? To have somebody external, because some things are so dangerous, so sensitive that if you can get lost, like you said, and you can end up killing yourself or whatever, right? You're getting really lost in it. But what I want to say is that even in that situation, when you have internally your multiple selves, and you've got the overview self, you've got the then self, you've got the now self, all of these are potent tools to use in conjunction with other, right?
Okay.
So all of them work together. That's what I want to say, right? It's important. And let's say you don't have somebody else, maybe your thing you're working on is not all that intense, but if you're only stuck in oneself, you're going to have trouble dealing with it. You need that multiplicity for the perspectives, for the overview, for getting contrast, and so on and so forth. So this multiplicity of self is a potent tool, but it's not, certainly in some certain circumstances, you definitely need an actual literal external other, not only an internal other. So they all work together. The point I want to make. I want, all right, keep going. I want to share a story. Since we're all sharing stories, I want to share a story too of a memorable event, because it brings into focus another tool of dealing with things. But anyway, keep going. I want to make sure that we finished on all the points on this that we're busy with.
No, I didn't have any more. I was just saying, I was making comments on what Beena had written. And then we got off into a conversation about other stuff there. So related, but other.
It's all acknowledgement, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So part of acknowledgement is to acknowledge that the self is not singular, that different parts of self respond, behave, and we have different parts. This is very important for acknowledgement. If we don't acknowledge the multiplicity of self, things are going to get compartmentalized and get maybe stuck there. And also, you don't want to go and deal with it with a me of then, for instance, because it's too painful. So you need a me of now to be able to deal with it.
To be a buffer.
That's saying, no, never come back here again, ever.
Right.
So you can't go back there with me of then. You have to come back with me of now. Or if it's current, You may, okay, that's my emotional sensitive side. Yeah, but I've got my scientist observational side. I've got my rational. So we need to use this multiplicity of self.
Mhm.
Very, very, very important, right? So
Right.
it's part of the overall philosophy of appropriateness. Yes.
Yes. Well, yeah, that's why like I wrote in my post, I think I put it up this morning, that one of the things we need to do when we're acknowledging is to also acknowledge and appreciate the other parts of self for
Yes.
doing the job that they do.
Wow, wow, wow. That's so cool that it was in your post this morning. Wow, wow,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that's why I said, I mean, I had a very strong idea of where I was going with it and what some of the tools were, but there was just some others, like I said, that I was like stuck on because I couldn't remember specifically what it was that pulled me out of that whole idea, that moment when I decided that, yep, okay, I'm worthy of liking, because I shifted then, but there was something that we were doing. There was an exercise and I don't remember what it was.
Your word of what?
Of liking myself, that I could
Right.
like myself. And that was like back in the very beginning. So anyway, yeah, I couldn't remember exactly what it was we were doing, but I know it was an exercise. And then we went back in through it when we were working on the feelings and beliefs, and major shifts occurred then. That was, some big ones, some really big turns occurred then. So I knew to connect acknowledgement to where our feelings and beliefs originate from.
Yes, yes. So that was awareness, that feeling and belief, an awareness of a mechanism that existed outside of our awareness.
Right.
So this is acknowledgement, to acknowledge that what we know is limited.
Yes. Yeah.
And what we need to know is outside of what we know. Therefore, it's going to be, because it's outside of the known, automatically it's going to be strange, different, unusual. And if we have all of that connected and associated with scary, then we're never going to connect to the unknown. We need to shift it. And this is why moreness is a philosophy. Because it is the relabeling of the unknown as moreness. The moment it becomes moreness, it's exciting. Oh, moreness. Oh, I'm keen for moreness. I'm greedy for moreness. I want moreness. When it's the unknown, it's like, no. I don't want any of that. That's scary. It's horrible. No. So it's a profound shift, because if we don't see what's outside of the known as moreness, if we see it as unknown, which is by default scary and unpleasant, we avoid it, and therefore we don't learn. So to see the unknown as moreness means we can learn, and not only can, but want to learn. We don't have to be forced to deal with it as an unpleasant truth. No, it's now a pleasant truth. So it's a big deal, big deal. So, part of acknowledgement is understanding our limitations, and that there is outside of us that we need to deal with. Yes, to acknowledge our limitations. This is absolutely critical.
Right. Okay. Well, go ahead with what you wanted to share.
All right. So it's the story. It's called The Bathroom Incident, and I'll share screen and I'll try and read it. But if not, then you guys are going to have to help me out, because my eye is bothering me. Oh, this reminds me, let me just stop share here. Before I 2 points I wanted to mention that, been on my mind since you were here last time. One is that if your eyes aren't working properly, this is a major cause of irritation and annoyance. They're directly linked, right? So very often, you'll see old people are very crotchety and annoyed. Why? Because their eyes aren't seeing clearly. It's very simple.
Okay.
Very basic connection. You mentioned something with your eyes the last time. And, well, right now I've got something that's really bothering me in my eye, but I remember this from what you were saying after the session, right? So a lot of times you just need to go and get your eyes checked, and you maybe need to update your eyeglass prescription or actually get glasses. So it's direct correlation between the two.
Right.
Direct correlation. Okay. It's astonishing. Yeah. If things are but out of focus, it makes us irritated. Direct correlation. It's very important to be aware of.
And other things too. Other things can make us irritated, not just our eyes.
Correct. Oh no, I'm definitely not saying it's only. Oh, absolutely. But that's it's not even by implication. I'm simply saying this is a major cause of irritation, right? It's very hard to avoid being irritated or annoyed when things are out of focus because it's so directly connected to our survival. When things are out of
Yeah.
focus, your survival is compromised, right? And the
Right,
same thing,
right.
of course, is going to happen if your hearing is sufficiently compromised, you know.
Uh-huh.
But if you have clear vision and your hearing is that, we can still deal with that easier than we can deal with when our eyes are and our hearing is okay. So because we're so primarily focused on being visual, right? So there's
Okay.
another advantage of capital H hearing, yes, that you can deal with that more easily. I'm just saying though, it's something that we forget, that when our senses are compromised, that it affects us in a very direct way. I mean, it's all our
Right.
senses, but sight, because we are predominantly sight, it's much more so. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
And the other
Okay.
point I wanted to share was that how do we determine truth, since we're talking about acknowledgement, right? Mostly for most people, truth is determined by how they feel. In other words, I feel hungry, therefore I am hungry. Yes. I feel
Yeah.
sleepy, therefore I am sleepy. I feel scared, therefore there is danger.
Okay.
Not necessarily on the third one, correct?
I know. See, but I don't really, I do not prescribe or subscribe to truth because it's all
Exactly.
subjective.
Exactly. So that's why I don't either, precisely because the truth is subjective. It's a variable. It changes all the time, right? So I
Yes.
hook from that entirely. However, though, we have to use some measure of determining or not necessarily truth, but how things are. At least in some way, we have to make an assessment in order to just function, right? So
Okay.
I'm just trying to make the point, though, that as an assessment tool for reality, for accuracy, for convenience, whatever, we so used to using our feelings as a mechanism. And yes, it does work. For instance, when like, okay, I feel hungry, therefore I am hungry. Even that's not always true, right? But this is an important to understand, that we can believe it's predominant and get into the habit of making feelings a predominant assessment tool. So to acknowledge again that, oh, wait a second, I need to use other mechanisms beside feeling for determining, for assessing, for evaluating, etc. Right?
Okay.
Processing. Right. Because to go only by feelings is tricky. It's dangerous. If you have that cause and effect, if I feel it, it must be so. This
Right.
to tons of trouble, right? And
Okay.
I'm not mentioning it for you personally. I'm mentioning it for, especially when you're dealing with clients. If you look carefully, you'll see that, oh, they're making a truth assessment, at least a truth to them, that's based on how they feel, not necessarily on what's going on. For instance, and
Right.
this came up in the oxygen being assessment, right? When the ozone, for instance. So ozone is good at high elevations. When low, it's smog and it's no good, right? Up there, it protects
Uh-huh.
you from UV and all sorts of stuff. You need it, but down here, it's unpleasant and nasty. The
Right.
same logic is sometimes you share moreness, like I was saying earlier, and somebody responds to this negatively. Let's say they caught up in the, and this has happened to me many times. I've been bitten in the ass by this like too many times, right? So you come along, you share your grandness, your moreness, your insights, your creativity, whatever, right? Your nobleness, whatever. And somebody who's in the superiority paradigm, all they hear is the comparison and they feel less, right? So
Right.
now their experience of feeling less is a determiner of truth. So they feeling less. How did this happen? Well, you came and you shared stuff, and then that's made me feel less. Oh,
Right.
well,
Right.
therefore you made me feel less. Right now, suddenly they into this. Their feelings have determined the truth. I made them feel less. In other words, I'm trying to do this because they're in the superiority paradigm, and with dominance and hierarchy and all this nonsense. That's what people do. They pull others down to feel better. So they ascribe that intent to me, which of course was not my intent at all. They're taking my intent was moreness and nobility and whatever. So they end up with the exact opposite of what I was doing. Why? Because of, well, yes, okay, comparison mindset and mentality of opposites, but also because they took their feelings as a determiner of truth. Yes. So this is
Okay.
a reality to them. It's a truth, and it's very hard to. The more you try and explain and say no, but you can't tell me what my feelings aren't true, right? And I'm not saying your feelings aren't true. I'm just saying they're not valid. So it's a very important point here to understand how feelings can be experienced as real. Your feelings are true, but what they mean is not necessarily true, right? Or they're not necessarily valid. Like the kid, the monster under the bed, their feelings are very real to them. The kid is genuinely terrified, but the monster under the bed is not real. So it's very, very, very subtle distinction, very important distinction, right? So many people use feelings as a mechanism for a determiner of truth or reality. And it's a poor mechanism, very poor mechanism. Yeah. There's something I wanted to add in that's left over from before. Powerful to understand, yes? I mean, especially
Very.
yeah, very powerful. Very powerful.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, what's going on here? Okay, so I'll do my best to read. If I'm struggling, then you guys can have to help me out. Okay, so chapter 4, the bathroom incident. Now, it takes a little bit of a preamble to get to the story, but if I start directly at the story, then it's also a bit lost.
Share screen, sir. Share screen first.
Thank you. So I'm just saying there's a bit of a preamble to it because it's part of the bigger, longer story. Now, for me, my recounting of memorable events and significant experiences, this is a story. It's a big, long thing, and it's all interconnected. So, all right, we're jumping in at chapter 4, and we can do this, but at least there's still some bit of, preamble that needs to connect. So I'll just read this, not too long. Beena left off from immersion into telling the young man's story for a moment and said, the young man here switches to a different, temporary way of relating what had transpired, a mechanism he used in order to connect back to either a memory or a thread once he had lost connection. He knew moving from the abstract to the particular would eventually draw him back in as needed. Beena smiled fondly. She enjoyed the variations of style from the young man. Let's continue with the story. The young man, to get back to the story. So Beela's telling the story of, she's repeating the young man telling the story, right? Just to get the logic clear here. The young man, to get back to the story. We were last coming to another impactful incident, but to recap. The story flowed out of a reading discussion, and we were talking about Carlos's books and how I had pulled the concepts of values from my great reading project, and particularly from Carlos, and how I had arranged those on a spreadsheet and sorted them by topic, category, and concepts. You remarked, that's how it all started. And I had to point out that that was an end, not a start, and how it had really started with the day the light bulb exploded. There were some relevant incidents before that day also which were shared. I explained what had happened that day, which set me on a path with a powerful motivation towards my definition of perfection, which I had figured out to be perfection, the condition from which, if one had the power to change anything at all, one would choose not to do so. This led me to think about how exactly to get there, which led me to consider what I would need to improve in myself, which led to an analysis which culminated in an understanding of the importance and necessity of expanding awareness and of being aware all the time. The in-depth insight into awareness led to an understanding that for the society I was in at the time, expanding awareness and making an effort specifically to be more aware was simply not a deliberate focus. This not a deliberate focus for that society. That wasn't clear there for me. This connected to the relevance of telling you about another incident which happened on one of the earliest days of school when I was 6. So now we get to the actual story here. The town we lived in at the time, but this is the context, right? What is more was not the focus on moreness in that society, and it sets up the context for the story. The town we lived in at the time, about 5,000 inhabitants in the white part, had only one school for all grades, representing an entire district and thus fairly large as school went. And when I say one school, all grades, it was from grade 1 to grade 12, right? It was very, I never known of another school that was like that, by the way. And it was a large school, I've known a small school, but anyway, I digress. A predominantly Afrikaans-speaking town with only a handful of English-speaking families such as ours. I only knew of one other family which had an English-speaking child my age. A residual animosity dating all the way back to the Boer Wars lingered between English and Afrikaans, which occasionally found expression. Wasn't a particularly big deal, but children will sometimes find something to make an issue out of for no good reason, especially when looking for reasons to support some kind of superiority or distinctiveness. However, for me, potential threat and risk to be aware of and pay attention to, because I was a minority, right? A huge minority. It's just kind of weird, when people talk about being a minority, we don't think that sometimes it can be simple like this, right? This language. Anyway, many ways to be a minority, in other words. The schooling only in Afrikaans due to the predominance, which had the benefit of leading to bilingualism for me. But Afrikaans is not a language I enjoyed speaking, even less thinking in. Just an aside there. One day at school, the one English-speaking boy my age, who strangely enough wasn't a friend, got into trouble. He had other siblings, but our families didn't know each other either. No particular reason, except to mention those relationships weren't influenced by language. I have only focused on the language issues because it comes into the incident, but minimal, yet something to keep in mind as a child. The trouble was from a senior. He was bullying this particular boy in one of the bathrooms, doing so for no other reason than the boy was English. From a first grader's perspective, I remember the senior practically an adult. I still remember my amazement that the senior would even bother to come and bully a child in first grade called sub-A then. I thought it made the senior very foolish and childish, made no sense whatsoever within the bully logic, right? I don't know if you remember when you were a kid, in first grade, that children that were in 11th or 12th grade, they were like almost adults, right? Or they were so far away. Anyway, he hadn't done very much to the other boy when another senior came along, one who was sort of English speaking. He never spoke English that I ever heard, but somehow that was an idea for me. I don't also know from which family he could have been, but the school had large boarding school facilities for the many kids from farms. The English senior told off the bully, saving the other boy, and likely me. In the process, kind of scolding the bully for being so ridiculous. Not sure if he specifically said anything, but that's the impression I received from him, confirming mine, that it was absurd and idiotic, even though I'd not been focused on by the bully yet, but this had been a distinct probability. Interestingly enough, my memory had no personal fear or stress in it at all, only observation. It's an interesting memory for me as it does not exactly correlate to its impact. The English senior told the other young boy and I to watch ourselves. Sorry, the English senior told the other young boy and I, to put a comma there. Dang it. To watch ourselves and be careful and not to be in the bathroom alone. More like he said, what are you doing here by yourselves as English boys and young boys? That's silly. You should know better. Not in those words, but my read of that senior's meaning at the time. That was it, and he left. Now comes the curious part for me. I cannot remember specific details much, but that incident led to a direct awareness right there, still in the bathroom, of the keen necessity for the strategic consideration of difference. As I now call it, it's difficult for me to precisely articulate the complexity and sophistication of the awareness which came to me there in that bathroom. That's about as close as I have ever come to a concise definition. There's so much to it all and on many layers. This understanding had not come directly. Many steps flashed by almost instantaneously through implication. We were different, which was okay, but couldn't be so unstrategically. It's not what we were, which the senior admonished about, but what we were showing. I clearly came to understand that one's individual person and one's social person were two separate instances of oneself, used differently. Also, a very clear understanding, individual did not mean secret. Hey, my keys are sticking. Individual did not mean secret, not at all. I have to emphasize this strongly. I had understood from reading that senior what we showed in that particular circumstance was the issue. Individual person was simply what one liked personally, what's of interest, private thoughts, and so on. Social person, how one was in public situations. I was keenly aware of this as a most important distinction. The entire understanding which flashed into me was about being appropriate. I didn't know the word then, but I clearly understood the concept. The understanding was of how behaving according to one's individual person wasn't a good idea in public and most social situations. Decidedly not a good idea because it would get one into trouble and would be no good. I'm trying to formulate the wording as closely as it would have been at the time if I were to have explained my understanding, the awareness I was having. But those words would have been inadequate without the word appropriate. What I would have described was exactly what appropriateness is. That was the clear understanding without the word specifically. It's most interesting and fascinating to me how one can have such a distinct, clear, and to me then acute understanding of a concept without a specific word or phrase for it. A knowing for me. I understood precisely and also knew I was aware fully of what appropriateness meant in this regard without having the word. Another aspect of that awareness infused me there in that bathroom, infused into me there in that bathroom. My individual side was not a secret, simply something I was in my own time. If anybody were to ask about it, I'd be happy to share. A clear and distinctive part of the appropriateness awareness from the incident, right? Not a secret. On the public side, I didn't have a specific feeling of needing to be in any particular or certain way, but there was a clear and certain knowledge that being individual could at times cause trouble. Again, it was very clear to not ever hide anything, but simply not to show what wasn't needed. This was very strong. So the implication here of not being false and phony, in other words. Also, see how my mind works at the very next thing. Also, a clear implication. It was not about being false or fake or phony in any way. The public side was just that, a side, a true side, but simply a side which was shown because of the sensibility involved, not because it was put on in any way. Many ways existed to be true and real. None were fixed. I want to repeat that. Many ways existed to be true and real. Many ways exist to be true and real. None are fixed. It was whatever it was. The only requirements were to be sensible about when to be in certain ways and understanding the need to learn to be flexible and adaptable. A clear knowing that one's person was not something that was fixed.
Wow.
Okay, I mean, I can go on a bit more, but I think I'm just emphasizing the main point here.
Always get amazed by that how much you were able to comprehend and understand and implement.
Yeah,
So
well, I
that
just think, Beena, it's carry over from now. Yeah, so that
yes.
basically, what I'm aware of now, I had somehow previously and was able to carry it over, and so that's to me is the important part here, the point to make. But the point I
But
want
this
to
is
make
so
is,
yes. Yes,
yeah,
please.
this concept that yes, appropriateness, but the specific application of appropriateness, which was in that particular instance, this understanding of a public self and a private self, which was the understanding which, had you had that in that classroom situation, you may have behaved differently, responded differently. And so, and likewise for sure. Yes.
Yes. This is yes, I see that what was the purpose for you to have all these things. Not only that it was carry over from now, but also that universe works in a very magical way. For so many people, it was needed to have someone to have that awareness from and experience same thing, but still having a different awareness.
Yeah.
So he could
do-
actually
yes,
articulate all these things for this. So,
yes. For me, that was a critical, physical necessity because of, one, boys got hidings. Well, okay, girls got hidings too, but in the school they didn't get canings. It was kind of slightly different. But also the bullying, it was physical with the boys, where the girls not so much, right? So the dangers of being different, standing out, being seen as odd, unusual, that's all makes you targets not only for bullying but for hidings. So this was a very physical thing, and also the culture of that society, not just from a physical point of view, but from a isolation, shunning, all sorts of problems, right, can come from being different. Simply not that there's anything wrong with your difference, but simply because difference is not particularly well tolerated, right? So this was a huge safety for me, and something which obviously, at some point before that, I'd figured out, hey, if there's things you need to remember, this is it. This is a critical life-saving awareness. And so that senior didn't say that in that direct way, but what he said led me to connect to that and be aware of it, and I guess remember it. That's the only way I can think of it. But it's very, very,
yes,
very powerful tool, because this is the tools here that we're talking about. So acknowledging that we need
yes,
tools, and this is part of
yes,
acknowledgement, right? That
yes,
we need
exactly. That's how I'm
strategies,
saying
we need
that
tools.
it's not only
Yeah,
awareness, having that awareness is profound, but actually being able to implement all that.
exactly, exactly. And what was the fourth part of Sher's quadrangle of A's?
Oh, that was application.
Exactly, exactly. So how did that story connect for you, Sher? If it did,
Um,
or
it
what's your
did.
take?
I guess, I don't know. It's hard to say. I could connect if you were an adult, but I couldn't connect it on a child's level, being a young person,
Yeah,
because of course
yeah,
I was, one of the ones that was targeted. Um,
yeah,
I didn't have those
exactly.
understandings, so
Exactly, exactly. It's hard. It's hard
I
to.
don't
That's why.
know.
Yeah, that's why Beena says, but still, you know what? You can't really relate very much to my childhood because you didn't really have one. How long did your childhood last? How many minutes? No, it's
Who,
difficult to
mine?
relate. Yeah,
No, I didn't have a childhood,
right,
so
right,
it's kind of
right,
hard to connect to it. But
right.
I mean,
Me neither.
it's
Yeah,
beautifully written.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. So
I lived a very different result. Sorry, a different life, and particularly my childhood was that incident because of this private and public self. It changed my entire way of doing things. Right, so I would be, do all the social things and be. I was a popular kid. I was never an outsider, even though my private self was completely and utterly outsider. It was, completely, I never ever discussed it with anybody. I never asked, and it was so far removed from what it was doing. But if I had the two more or less together, I would have been that classic outsider. So it
yeah,
really, really saved me from that disconnect that otherwise would have happened. Either many ways to deal with it. You can be rebellious, you can fight against the system, you can go into isolation, you can repress things, and still many different ways to deal with it. But it saved me from all of that. That's why I mention it as a tool, and I really just feel like the things that are important now that we emphasize, that we talk on Zoom, those are things that I remember then. So I don't know, somehow time has got a flexible fluidity to it, and I suspect at some point in time everybody's going to experience this, that you start life with things that at all the important points, your dictionary of power points, in other words, right? So that for me was, now in my dictionary of power, private self and public self are profound tools. Yes, a
okay,
huge tool. So,
I
and
could see
that's why
that.
the things that carried over there, and of course, appropriateness, it carried over, the concept carried over, not the word, right? Because that's the point of the dictionary of power. It's the concepts. I don't need to remember the word. The concept is important. Yeah. So yeah, big deal, big deal, big deal. Just in terms of tools, that's why I wanted to share it. And just in the context of Beena's story, if we look back at it and say, well, let's assume we're going to be reliving our lives over and over, right? What would I need to have in me so that that incident is different? Yes, that doesn't have the same effect on me. I can't change the incident, but I can change my experience of the incident. Yes, and I ask this question of myself all the time. It's a profound question. So part of acknowledgement again is to say I acknowledge my behavior in that situation, my reactions, my feelings, my thinking. But also I want to say, if I were to be in that same situation, what would I need to know from an abstract point of view? What tools do I need to have in place so that I won't have the same end result, the same experience? Yeah.
Okay.
This is, for me, it's a big, big deal in my life. I think of this constantly. What did I need to know differently? I didn't think of it as previous lives. I just looked back at my behavior when I started awareness. I said, in order to avoid my nincompoopry, what do I need to know for next time? That would make a difference. And I developed all the dictionary of power, strategies, and tools as a result. Very powerful tool to say, what do I need to know that would have changed that situation? In a big overview, abstract point of view. As a
Sorry, I was
tool.
writing.
Strategy. Yeah.
Okay.
And we have to acknowledge. I guess this is another reason why I wanted to share the story. We have to acknowledge that we can be outside of expectations. We can be beyond expectations. Our expectations can be limitations. This is very important, right? So I was not a typical child, as that story illustrates. And that whole long story, I very seldom share it, because when people read it, they're like, oh, come on, seriously, Sil, this is unbelievable. Like, to me, it wasn't. That was my reality. Yes, I never thought of it because I never had that, to me, I was just being me. I didn't see it as unusual. A little bit to some extent, but not in the fullness of it, right? Because I'm just being me. So how can I say it's unusual? Well, it's the reality. But, externally, people look at my experiences, and this is one of many, where I related to things that happened like that, typical bullying incident. My whole experience was completely different to what people would experience themselves. And because of that difference, they deem it to be unrealistic and unreal. And this is what I want to say. So to acknowledge that there are other options that are outside of our expectations, this is very important. So we can update and say, oh, you know what? I can be in other ways that aren't typical or unusual, that are uncommon, that are exceptional, etc. Very, very important. If we don't acknowledge that we can be exceptional, completely different, then we can't be that. Yes.
But it's also important to acknowledge that, other people are going to have different views. Hold on. Okay, that other people will have a different view of, like, say, the same experience. You can both be looking at the same rock. Right. And both of you are going to describe it differently. Same thing with feelings, with opinions, with experiences, with the bullying, like we were talking about. So yeah, there's, we can experience things differently. And as we grow, we can experience things differently. However, it's really important to acknowledge also not just what we feel, but what somebody else is feeling.
Exactly. That's the point I was making. My whole story was exactly about that point, which I'm a little surprised that you say it as a but.
Because it wasn't coming out that was what the point was. At least not to me. I was taking it that you were talking.
So I'm saying then, when I'm saying a little differently, because that was my entire story, that this is a story about doing something differently. This is a different experience to what is usually experienced, right?
Right,
So I'm
right.
not saying this is the only experience, it's a different experience. And that's what I was
Yes.
saying. My conclusion was to acknowledge that there are other
Yes.
experiences to our own.
Right,
Right.
right.
So, right. And then now, because I acknowledge this, I said, oh, wait a second. There's not only other experiences which are similar, but other experiences which are radically different, which means that if they exist as a possibility, I can maybe adopt some of those different ones to say it's not only different experiences from a stressful point of view, but sometimes people may respond to what I responded to as stressful in a way that was not stressful to them, but beneficial to them.
Uh-huh.
To
Okay.
recognize that possibility, so that if we're going to redo these experiences in some way, which likely in life happens, stuff happens the same, that the next time I respond, I can respond so completely differently that it's not stressful, that it's a positive, that it's a gift, it's a boon. Yes?
Yeah, you just have to remember to do it, I mean,
Exactly.
you're not going to learn
Exactly.
it after the first time.
Right.
So,
Right.
okay.
So this is part of the acknowledgement too, to acknowledge that the profound differences do exist, and the acknowledgement is that those profound differences. If I just say, well, the profound differences exist, well, duh, but that I myself can adopt those profoundly different ways of being, right, or ways of
Right,
dealing, ways of relating. So,
right.
wow, it's not just a way of like suffering through it, but ways of transforming it, way of appreciating it. So completely, utterly different to what I expect, that it shifts me and provides me with tools, right? This acceptance and acknowledgement of profoundly different. It's a
Uh-huh.
very, very, very big deal. Yes?
Yes, they are. They are.
Yeah. That the
Okay.
profoundly different does exist. So we don't get trapped by our expectations, which can be limitations, right? In other words,
Right.
when certain people hear that story, they say, come on, Sol, that's unrealistic. No kid behaves that way. I've had this too when I've shared some of my stories, like in the writers group. It's not this particular story, but another one. They say, oh, this is completely unrealistic. No child will ever behave that way. And I'm like, well, okay, I didn't argue the point because I hear your point. I appreciate your understanding. And yes, it is uncommon. It's unlikely. It's improbable, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And I know this for a fact because, well, I experienced it, right? So, well, and I can't insist you believe me because I'm just asking you to, there's no way I can prove that it happened. So there's no point in me having a big, long discussion about it or debate, because I'm just going to, in the end, insist that I'm telling the truth. But
Right,
this is the
right.
point.
Just, yeah. The
Yeah.
point is to entertain, and that part I did get, to entertain the idea that, yeah,
Exactly.
we need to, and I'm not going to say must, but it's important to entertain the idea that obviously my experience isn't going to be the same as somebody else, but then, that involves everything. It's not just acknowledging our experiences, but someone else's.
Exactly. And to stretch our range of assumptions about the range of variation of behavior.
Right.
Right. So we have typically most people have sort of a range that, in the situation, this is the extremes that people can behave. Sometimes there are behaviors that are outside of that range of extremes.
Right.
And that's an important consideration, because if we don't recognize and acknowledge, this is again acknowledgement, if we don't acknowledge that behaviors can exist outside of our range of expectations, we're never ever going to be able to incorporate that into our range of behaviors. Yes. And
Right.
that's what we're after. We want to have that entire range and more, and be open to it so that we can be appropriate and shift to it, even if we have to create a new behavior in the moment that completely contradicts all expectations. Yes.
But appropriate to the person themselves, not what's appropriate to just you, but appropriate. And I'm not saying you as in you, Sil. I'm saying
correct. Anybody, correct. Appropriate to the individual in their circumstance.
Right.
That's what appropriateness is. It's not how
Right.
I would behave in your shoes. It's how you're going to behave in your shoes. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
What is appropriate for me isn't necessarily appropriate for you. Correct.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, this is, to me, it's fundamental to appropriateness. To say appropriateness is contextual. It depends on the person's goals and motivations, what they're trying to achieve. Some
Exactly.
people, they want to be contrary. Their goal is to be contrary. They like being
Mhm.
contrary. This gives them a great joy and a thrill. Others like to be conformist. So it all depends. So behavior is absolutely contextual. Appropriateness is contextual, not only taking the literal context in mind, but also the goals and motivations of the individual. Those two things, right? Because in the same context, your goals could have, different goals can lead to different appropriateness. And likewise, the same motivation in different contexts can lead to different appropriateness. So yeah, it's always a balance between the two, goals and context. Yeah.
Well, now I've got this. Now I have this great big image that all of life is nothing but one giant experience of subjectiveness.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm not seeing anything as
Exactly.
valid, as factual, as truthful as anything. Right now, to me, the whole entire world is nothing but fucking subjective.
I agree. And this is a profound awareness, Sher. It's profound. Because
it's annoying, is what it is.
Well, kind of, but you're acknowledging the truth, which is subjectivity. That's one truth that's very hard to get away from.
That it's annoying?
Yeah.
Well, no. I'm only laughing about that just because, that's part of that whole dark truth thing. It's like, holy cow, once you finally get to that point, you just go, well, now what am I going to have fun with?
Right. And, the implications, you're laughing because of the implications. Because by implication, I'm this giant, massive, egotistical narcissist. The whole world is subjective. Yes, it is. It doesn't make you necessarily egotistical or narcissistic. It can, but not necessarily. So yeah, it's a profound awareness to be realized that, oh my goodness, you know what? It's all subjective. Yes.
It is. It really is. It is.
So when
what am I going to have fun with? So.
Right. But what's cool about this is, though, that when I acknowledge the subjectivity, I can work with this, because now my capital H hearing becomes not about being objective. Yes, this is what I'm trying to do, but really my objectivity is to minimize my subjectivity.
Minimize my what?
My subjectivity.
Why?
Well, that's how I get to be objective, because by taking, if I'm completely immersed in, like, fully in my subjectivity, this is like what a narcissist is, right? That they on that extreme of the subjectivity. So we want to find the balance. We don't want to get lost in our subjectivity. We want to understand it's subjective, but not to be lost in it. Like a narcissist is completely lost in his subjectivity.
See, now, okay, then maybe I'm understanding narcissists wrong, because, wait, now I can't hear anything.
I'm hearing you.
Okay, sorry, my speaker cut out.
Oh.
Then maybe I'm understanding narcissists wrong, because I always thought that they were completely objective, where everything was black and white to them, factual, this is how it is, and this is how it's always going to be, and I'm not going to understand one thing about you. You have to make it all about me.
Yeah, but they are presenting their subjectivity as that, right?
Okay,
so
the other side of subjectivity.
According to them, that's how arrogant they are. They are so absolutely immersed in their subjectivity that they present it as truth and fact.
Okay.
See, that's what narcissism is to communicate your subjectivity as objectivity. Yes.
Okay. All right. Now I understand what you're saying.
Is that? And this is the defining characteristic of narcissists, is their internal arrogance. They believe that their subjectivity is the truth, the truth for everybody, not just them. Yeah.
Okay. So then they're the ones I feel like have got it wrong, because The way I see it, I don't know. I just don't see that there is like a truth to anything. It's just
Exactly.
whatever a person defines it as, whatever their truth is.
Exactly.
And,
Exactly.
you know,
And each person is living in their own subjectively created reality. So,
yeah,
this is that's what I'm saying. Sure, you were laughing, and I don't want to. Yes, it's appropriate the laughter, but I also want to appropriately emphasize that awareness as being a profoundly sublime, a greater, bigger picture awareness. It's monumental. This awareness that everything is subjective. It really helps us to connect and realize and identify. Now, just because my entire existence is subjective doesn't mean I cannot experience your subjectivity.
okay, now I'm lost.
I can use my understanding of my subjectivity and how it's all around me, right? And say, I've experienced many different variations of reality, right? It's still all subjective, but because I've experienced many variations, I can now climb into your particular subjective variation, and at least to some degree, and have that understanding of it from inside, how it all relates to you, how it all
Okay.
connects to you, right? So I'm using
Okay.
imagination, in other words, to appreciate your experience of your reality. This is what capital H hearing is. It's
Yes.
to hear your reality, to try and minimize my subjectivity and hear
Okay.
your subjectivity. Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm following you.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. It's fun.
See,
It's fun.
I'm struggling a little because I have this one, see, there it is, that's conditioning. I have this one definition of subjective. And so now I'm trying to stretch that definition. I'm trying to unlimit it and see this whole bigger picture. So that's why I'm struggling.
And that's rule number one with your dictionary of power. They are not definitions, but conceptions. And a conception is open. Yes. It's fluid, it's flexible, it adapts, it updates and upgrades constantly. And that's exactly what you just did now. You shifted subjectivity from a definition to a conception.
Yeah.
And you updated it. Yeah.
Yes.
How cool is that? How cool is that?
Taxing on my brain right now. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's cool. It's cool. It's cool.
It is. I'm just saying it's taxing on my brain right now. That's all.
So this is key. Yeah.
I'm still trying to. I'm still trying to update. Subjectivity there. So.
Gotcha. So this is very key.
I don't have a lot of RAM.
I hear you. So it's acknowledgement, Sue. Acknowledgement of our limitations.
Oh my goodness, yes. right now it's limited.
A joke about having a lot of RAM?
No, she just got it, I mean, I don't have that.
I thought it was like a naughty joke
No, I just don't have a whole lot of room up there. Memory. Yeah, I'm still trying to minimize. I'm still in the process of minimizing, and let me see, personally, if I can get through today and the next couple of days, then I'm hoping it's going to be smooth sailing. I've just got to get to the finish line. That's all.
Excellent. You will, Sher. You will. How many times in your life have you been in a similar situation where you just had to get through the next couple of days or weeks?
Oh my God, that's every day.
Right.
That's every day for me.
So based on hang on a second. Hang on 1 second. Yeah. I need to get the.
See, you know about corrupt files, right? On a computer system?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So it's one of these things where, you write a file and then you write the patch for it for the corruption. You fix the patch, you fix the bug, you patch it, and you send out the new file, right? That's what goes on with me every single day.
Yep.
Every day. There's constant patches and updates and upgrades.
So
it's worse than Windows.
Right. So you said, I just need to get through the next couple of days. And by implication, that's a maybe.
Um,
In the way
well,
you said it,
now,
right?
see,
But it's not a maybe, correct?
well, no, it could very well be a maybe. It's,
All right. Okay.
there's a lot, yeah, there's a lot writing on it.
Right. So when I said to you, but sure, in your, how many times has this happened in the past where you've just had to get to the next couple and you said, oh my God, this is my entire life,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And which is 21,900 days.
okay.
So in
But I
other words,
cannot,
it's happened
wait,
21,900 times in your life before.
okay. But that doesn't mean that probability
You've
is
had to
going to be,
get through the next.
but that doesn't mean probability
I
is going to be
agree.
in my favor because there is no tomorrow. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. So I have to
agree.
get through today.
I agree. Right. Again, just because something has happened, like when you flip a coin, even if
Yeah.
it's come up heads 100 or 21,900 times, the probability of it coming up heads is still 50-50. Right.
Yeah.
I agree. However, you can say, though, the probability is maybe 50-50. However, what you can say is that, wow, I have a track record of 21,900 times of getting through to it. So somehow I'm able to get through this, even though the probability is 50-50. So the
could have said that,
probability
but I
might be
didn't.
50-50, but the you're getting through it is not 50-50. You're getting through it is 100%.
Could could be. I
You're
don't know.
alive. You're alive. You got through it 21,900 times. You got through
Well,
it.
those times, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not expecting death. I'm just expecting, like,
I realize
financial
that.
doom.
Right. I realize that, but I mean, still, you got through it. I'm just using this
Yeah.
as a way to relieve the stress a little bit. I know it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
technically accurate, but when you think back to say, you know what am I stressing about? I got through it before, I'll get through it again.
Oh, yeah. No. That I get. That's why I just have to laugh it off, though, because it's just been so much pressure that it's just been phenomenal. So
yeah, what's happening? The pressure
I
now
would, no, it's yes, it's still where I live. So, it's coming down to the wire, and we are arguing on what they say I owe versus that's what the owner says. The manager and I both say, no, I owe something less. And he is saying, no, you owe more. And
so what does
now,
legal aid have to say about this?
They're ready to take it to court.
Okay, good. So because that will help you tremendously. If you said, look, to whoever doesn't want to agree with us, say, look, if this goes to court, you got me and the man. It's like, come on, man, get real here.
Well, the manager has already told them that if it goes to court, then they're going to lose. And I would have every right to sue for more. But still, it doesn't mean that it doesn't make it easy being here in this position. So,
and I'm assuming the owner is the third party here.
Yeah.
They know that people don't like going to court. So he's trying to bully you. So all you got to do is just stick it out and not be bullied, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, no, so we've been laying low, but it just doesn't make it easy. So
I just and stick to your guns, right?
Yeah. So I just have another day or two to stick this out and wait on their response. And of course, this stuff always happens when offices are closed and blah, 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 and everybody's now behind. It's like, whatever.
Yeah, long weekends. Yeah.
They don't need everything happens on a Friday, right?
Exactly. It's absolutely a rule of news reporting that it always happens on Friday late afternoon.
Well, yeah, because
it really does. A lot of the politicians and stuff, they will deliberately release things then because they know that people can't deal with it until Monday or it's on weekend. So yeah, they do it on purpose. It's quite amazing.
Oh yeah, they do. That's when they usually deliver the news.
Yeah, since we were talking about alternative ways of behaving and being that are outside our range of expectations, sometimes people, despite all the logic, all the sensibility, all the reason, all probability, everything involved, they still act stupidly.
Yes, this one definitely is. He definitely is.
So sometimes, and then, it becomes anomalous, and then you have to just say, thank you, universe. This is an anomaly, and which means it's happening for a good reason. So
Right.
then you trust and you adapt and you say, thank you. Oh, I didn't know what the reasons are, but maybe I'll find out later. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
But you trust, you accept it as a gift, and you change and you move along.
Yeah. See, and I'm only fighting to stay here for until what, January, because I can't afford to move. I mean, that it's going to cost me more to move than it is to just, stay put. So that's the only reason I'm fighting to stay here until what, January.
So by the way, ask legal aid. They may just know, not that it's part of what they do, but they may just be aware of. Say, look, I'm here and I'm stuck because I can't move, and but maybe you can get some financial assistance from a charity that helps people like you to move when they are stuck in situations like this. So ask them.
Yeah, yeah. That's what the Brazoria County Housing Authority. I've been working with them closely, just because. Well, there have been complaints. Apparently, the owner does not have a good name in this city. You just mention his name, and everybody's like, "Oh my goodness! Please tell me you're not renting from him."
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So he's got pretty nasty reputation. And I wish I would have known that before I moved in here. Really wish I would have known. But it is what it is. I'm here. I just got to make it through the next couple of days, stress-free as much as possible. So we're just going to go run errands and go to the library and do our thing. And, all I can do is wait, but the stress is, the wait is stressful. There you go. It's the wait.
Also, though, when you think it through, though, the how much haven't you learned as a result?
Well, I learned a lot about Texas landlord laws, that's for sure.
Well, I don't mean it. I don't mean it in that sense. I mean in terms of how to deal with stuff like this, right? You're dealing with a bully, you're dealing with a BMN. It's been an opportunity for you to practice, and that's powerful. I should have said not much how much you had to learn, but how much you had opportunity to practice and implement and apply. Yes.
Yeah, especially diplomacy. I've also learned that there's a lot of times you just got to bite your tongue. And my favorite phrase now is "that's nice," which is it's Southern ladies' way of saying something else. So,
so what was your four A's of acknowledgement?
Oh, it's awareness, acknowledgement, acceptance, and application.
Okay, so if we take acknowledgement and we give it a heading, and we want to put those 4 A's, we can say, instead of awareness, we can put in attention there. So we've got awareness, attention. What was the third one?
Appreciation.
Appreciation.
No. Yeah. Yeah, it was yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And application. So my point is that for acknowledgement, we have to acknowledge.
Oh, acceptance. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Acceptance. I thought it wasn't acceptance, but acceptance and appreciation is kind of the same thing. So you can even make it 5. You can even add in appreciation there, right? So the A terms are very powerful. To acknowledge means that you have to go inside each of those subpoints and do them, feel them, experience them, apply them, and practice them.
Yes. Yeah. Right? So that's what the application is.
Acknowledgement is the practice, right?
Yep.
Application, though, for some people, they can think of it as only maybe a one-time thing. No, application.
Yeah. Well, that's why a lot of times when I'm writing it out, I say apply and practice, because otherwise it's too cut and dry, and I don't want that. I want it to be
underneath application. If you now make a whole diagram out of this, right? So you've got acknowledgement at the top, then you got the 5 A's. Yes, underneath that. Right? So far 5 A's. Under application, you've got immediate doing, and you've got practice. You've got also under practice, you can have another one that says repetition. Yes. Right. So and upgrading, you're still doing essentially the same thing, but you are there's always this minute little tweak that each time it's slightly different, it's like incrementally different, right? Incremental.
Yes. Yes. Let me see. Yeah.
So that's a part of practice, as it is repetition. It's repetition is incremental difference, right? Each time you do the same, you discover some new tiny little thing, and you tweak, you update. So yeah, just to make that diagram is pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beena,
Yeah.
you've been quiet. What do you have to share? You still with us?
Enjoying your
Beena?
conversation. Yes, yes, I was enjoying your
Good.
conversation. I
Oh,
still
good.
feel that this somehow personally for me, whenever something happened like this, that uh, I am in a situation and I have a perspective, even if I try to deliberately have some other perspective, the disconnect part always jumps in for me. This is the safety mechanism I have, that, okay, to have a different perspective, I have to disconnect myself, which
Uh-huh.
is, of course, not necessary all the time. It is good, okay, it gives you more clarity, it gives you more abstract point of view, uh, it leverages that, but you don't need to disconnect. We can do this, but the discomfort is overwhelming, and for me,
Yeah.
I just avoid that at first. And having this ability to to have a different perspective, I was actually blown away, completely blown away by this ability of Sil. Whenever we share something, he always have something different. And in the beginning, I was like, how can a person think like that? How would I be able to do this? Never. I was like, okay, this is something superpower, unnatural, and it is just only specific to him. This is not possible for me. That was my understanding at that time. Because whenever Sil asked me that, okay, Beena, you can also do this, everybody can do this, and he asked question, and I was like, like, no, I cannot do this because I have no other thought. But the more we try to understand things, not only those specific situations or incident in our life, in general, more we put attention, we pay attention to, we put our focus on, more we understand and more we are able to shift the perspective. It
Mm-hmm.
happens, I don't know how, but it was happening with me. It happened to me. I was paying attention to in situation where I was not personally emotionally connected to, like other
Mm-hmm.
people or some general political situation, economic situation in life, or other things, environmental situation. I was like, okay, yes, when I'm thinking in those situations where I was not emotionally involved, that was the real practicing ground for me. There
Mm-hmm.
I was able to shift a perspective. Okay, so what about this? And then what about this? And because I had no emotional connectivity, I was easily able to do that. And
Right.
gradually, it was the more I practice, it becomes a second nature. And even now, when I am emotionally connected to my story, that poison apple, still I'm emotionally connected to that. Yes, it is not as overwhelming, and I don't want to lose that in emotional connectivity because I'm leveraging it. It's an energy. Emotions are just energy in motion, and I want to leverage this energy for my creative process and for my creative skills. But it is not affecting my understanding, my ability to understand things, my ability to be open to different perspective. That is the key. Emotionally affected, yes, it is still affecting me big. It is influential for me. I still have tears in my eyes when I'm writing it down. When I was sharing with Robin, when I was sharing with you, I was still crying. And I have no hesitation to accept that, yes, I do have this thing, but I'm leveraging that energy. So for me, the key point was to start practicing with other things other than my emotional connectivities association with,
Mm-hmm.
because it was so easy for me to do that. I don't know for others. For me, it was easy. If I'm just talking about a football match where I don't have any favorite football team or something, and I was like, okay, yes, and then Sil says, okay, what can be something different about it? And then you start playing it. That the moment, actually the aha moment for me big time was when someone made a post on Facebook and say that, okay, if you would have no rent issue, no money issue, where in the world you would like to live? and people were giving, and I was also like, okay, yes, there. And so says, Beena, read it again. There is no limitation. And I said, so yes, this is what I'm saying. He says, no, because you are just following that. Okay, I will buy the house near that and all that to be that. He says, why
Everybody
not?
said essentially
Why
the
not?
house by the
And then,
beach, that, kind of.
yes, but and for us it was like, oh my god, we just go to Sicilian mafia, to Vatican, to
The Louvre
and
yeah.
I don't know how many. I wrote a post about that, where you don't have any emotional connectivity to any incident. There you can actually practice this. No ego involved there.
Yeah,
No
different.
safety mechanism. Go play without any reputation involved in that.
It's
So
the
this is
key.
what
It's
I did.
right. So part of acknowledgement is to acknowledge our expectations and how they can be limiting.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Fantastic. This is fantastic. All this acknowledgement. So powerful. So powerful. So part of expectations in the inverse, and I want to finish on this point. It's been sitting with me for a while now in the conversation, is to acknowledge and understand the power and the influence of confirmation bias.
Yeah. It's pretty big. It's pretty big.
It's huge. It's huge. It's huge, huge, huge. Right. So not only is our reality subjective, but it's influenced by our confirmation bias. And when we understand that subjectivity has a root and an origin in a particular belief of some kind that we're attached to acknowledge those beliefs and to see, hey, now I develop a different perspective on my subjectivity. I get that little bit of objectivity, little bit, note well, I say, of an external perspective from myself on my own subjectivity to understand my own confirmation bias. Yes.
Yes.
And in Beena's story, if we look at Beena's story through the lens of confirmation bias, it becomes a deeply, profoundly a psychological story of an insight into how psychology works.
It is.
It's really huge. Really, really, really huge.
Yes.
Yeah. Very, 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 very powerful. Confirmation bias affects us in so many ways, so many subtle ways that we don't realize. And we can use information bias positively. It doesn't have to be a negative, like all tools, right? Just because it's typically negative doesn't mean it has to be. I've got a really profound post. I think it's in Way of Impeccability somewhere about, confirmation bias being used positively. Really cool.
Yes.
Really cool. Most magical. Okay. What a wonderful Zoom. What a wonderful, wonderful Zoom. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it. Okay. I got plenty of good stuff. Thank you, Beena, for reading your beautiful share there. I loved it. I thought it was very vulnerable. And I know it wasn't easy for you to do. So I want to applaud you and appreciate you for that.
And we look forward to many, many more such stories, not only from you, but also from you.
Yeah, mine are going to be more recent though. I'm pretty well done with.
Right.
I just feel done with all of the past stories.
So keep in mind a memorable event or a significant experience. Of course, it's the whole range of emotionality. Oh, yeah. My brain is somewhat set up to remember positive. Like, for instance, I got hidings, not very many. I learned very quickly, right? So, I avoided the canings at school, but it did happen, right? But I can't remember the physical pain of it. And I remember it was painful at the time, but I can't remember a physical pain in it, right? So I remember the incident, but it's like, okay, I got a caning and that was it, Yes, it was painful, but there's no feeling attached to it. Just the way my brain is set up. So I'm just saying, though, that we can shift our associations and connections and to see memorable events as stuff that happened that was profound in your life. not necessarily, yes, it was profound what happened to Beena, but I mean profound in a positive way, right? In an influential way, like, oh, this was a magical experience. Those are also memorable events and significant experiences. And particularly if we start to think of those in the connection of anomalies, this is it blows up the whole everything. All of a sudden you're going to have, oh, this was an anomaly, wow, I kind of forgot about that, and you go back inside it and you re-experience the experience of that anomaly with me of now and me of then. Oh my goodness, magic happens. Magic. So yeah,
Yes.
absolutely go into the different experiences in your recounting. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You told the whole story. Now it's how you adapted, shifted, how you grew, how you changed, how you survived, and
Yeah.
how magic came, mourners came, etc. Those are exactly, I mean, to me, you sort of got a post Larry and a pre Larry,
Mhm.
right?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Right. I mean, at least a post Larry's death, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, I understood what you were saying.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that's
the post Larry that's a whole different story,
yeah. Well, that's why the title to my book is really kind of long. I know you're not supposed to title it until after, but this one had to be done now.
Such thing as supposed to.
And just because of the what do you call it? The intent of the book, I titled it's Unbound, Another 100 Days of Intent, but the subtitle is The Mournus Chronicles.
I love that. Yeah.
Because it is all about the path, this journey from, after Larry to present, and how a person can change, how it's possible. So, or grow, whatever they want to call it. But so that's where it is.
Very cool.
And it's coming along. I'm banging away at it every day.
Good.
And yeah, it's coming along.
Yeah, you're more than welcome whenever we come on Zoom to share what you've been working on currently and get perspective. Oh, absolutely, this would be fantastic. By the way, just since my editor brain got kicked in there, you can combine the title, that long title, to say The Mourners Chronicles, or just Mourners Chronicles of Another 100 Days of Intent.
Okay, that's a cool one too. I like that, switching it around.
Just combine it, right?
Yeah. It's but I want to make sure that whatever I do with that, it's going to be connected back to the first book, because it's a continuation.
Yeah, so it's the Mourners Chronicles of Another 100 Days of Intent.
Okay, let me write that down.
I mean, that combines, right?
Okay.
And you don't even have to put in the. You can just say Mourners Chronicles of Another 100 Days of Intent. And, another can be italicized if you want to emphasize.
Another, okay. 100 days. All right. Yeah.
Very cool.
Okay.
I would like to hear what you're writing. This would be fantastic, and I hope in this particular writing that you draw and write like you recommended for Beena, or say, oh, where's the apple? I want to see it. Same thing. Have an idea of what you're going to write about, draw it, and then write, and use the two together.
Yes, they are.
Okay, cool.
It's
I
but this one, but it's not going to have bunches of drawings. It's going to have very specific ones.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And then I'm an elucidation of the drawing. Essentially, yes.
Yeah, yes and no. You'll see. I'll show you.
Okay. Wow, I'm excited. I'm excited. But all I'm saying is, add the drawing or the painting as part of the process. It doesn't matter how it works. It may be different for each chapter. Some may have one, some may have multiple. Doesn't matter. It's just to incorporate it into the process. That's what I'm recommending. Not a specific way to do it, but just to add.
And there's some diagrams in there, which I haven't done any of those yet, but I do have certain drawings that are coming to mind, and some that I'm already going to use.
Fantastic.
Let me see. I want to do the cover.
Yeah, I haven't seen the drawing for a while. I'm like, man, you're behind in sharing.
I've done it. Let me see. Did I send you my last ones? I think I did. I know I didn't draw the last couple of days just because I've been occupied with other things. But probably coming up in the next couple of days. I really had to get some housework done. So
All right,
we did that.
Good. The last drawing you shared was the one of I'm gonna lose the one where it has like the rectangle in the top right hand corner and the sort of flowing lines and colors coming from it.
I don't know.
I
Let
can't
me
show it because then I'm gonna lose a comment somewhere. What comment am I gonna lose?
let me see which one I sent.
Oh, my editing. I'll show you now. I'll show you what you sent. I've got it up here.
The mess around the table not being cleaned up, and so
Yeah. Well, I just scrolled up in our chat. So let me screen share and then I'll show you what. Yeah, have a look. This
well,
is the one you lost.
well, I think you saw my Phoenix.
I know that's the last
Seeing-
one I got from you.
Oh, okay. Well, then, yeah, that one I kind of botched, but that was an
Now, this is
idea.
the previous one. Well, I think it's really cool.
Okay,
Very
let
nice.
me.
Oh,
all right,
yes.
let me.
And this one, I love this one. Have you seen this one, Beena?
No, but the rectangular one is something very special for me. Really.
Oh, share, Beena, share.
Yeah, because this is very interesting. These points in these shapes, they're like lined with blue, pink, and the
Yeah.
peach and the green.
Yep.
It feels like a constellation.
That's exactly what I
it's-
was going to say too. Yes.
Yes,
It
and
kind of it is.
yes, and this is very. If these are auras, and then they have these constellations in them, and this is the vision thing, which could be a book also, not necessarily, but that vision of something written, a book there. And then an eye behind that too. I know that it might be a sun, but it looks like that a big eye. So
Yeah, it
a
is.
lot of things happening in this. This is wonderful.
Yeah,
This
it's
one,
brilliant. It's brilliant.
this one, this one was a representation of what it feels like to be in a digital existential crisis.
Wow.
And I loved your take on it, but all the dots and everything, those are all the different connections that you get electronically. So what I wanted to draw, I just couldn't. I mean, I tried and tried and tried, which was a person coming out of a computer, disconnecting. I was trying to represent unhooking from all of the social media, unhooking from all of the beliefs and the BS that goes on out there in the internet, just because everything was getting really, really overwhelming. So I had to disconnect from the news. I had to disconnect from social media for a couple of days, just because there was so much going on. There was so much anger, I couldn't take it. And that happened right about the time Roe versus Wade was overturned. And then they overturned our Miranda rights. So yeah, they took those away. So I just went, I'm done. And that I couldn't draw what I wanted to. So this is what came out. And I was going to show you this. Let me see. Oh, well, okay. I don't know if you saw this one or
Let me
not.
stop screen sharing so you can screen share.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Beena, I don't know if you saw this one or not.
Oh, you're showing it to us.
Yes.
Okay.
I saw that.
Okay. Now I fixed
I
my
don't-
Phoenix. I added more
Did
yellow
you
to
send
her.
me that one? Did you send me that one?
I don't know. I don't know if I did. This is my Phoenix though.
Yeah.
I don't remember having the Phoenix either.
Yeah. This one was just, rise. And I showed you that one. This one is duality. I don't, this is just duality. This is like, the disruptive feelings, and this one is the more mellow, gentle feelings. And then you've got the opening here where it's like they could go either way. So, because I was feeling really split about that point. Let me see. This one, I don't know. What did
Oh.
I name this?
Beautiful
This-
one.
This one I was just drawing. This one was just how I was feeling. So it's a lotus in a pond. Yeah.
It's fabulous. Yeah, it's fabulous.
So that's just kind of how I was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that one was
that's
conflicting
your-
emotions. Yeah, thought that one was kind of soft. This one was just, I was purely pissed off. That's what that is. That's
Yeah.
anger.
Good, good.
This one,
I love this.
Oh,
This is great.
now Sil said that he thought of Hunter. And what did I call this? Oh, this
You know,
one
when
was,
dogs kind of have that little, when they do
Yeah.
those little loopy circle walks, like.
yeah, this one was bubble immersion.
Yeah, yeah, and that's exactly when dogs are doing that pattern. They in that little, they're following the same path around and around. They're in a bubble motion. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Okay, my screen stopped there. There it goes. Okay. So anyways, yeah, that's what that is, and these are all fingerprints, because when I went to go turn the page, as you can see the back of it, when I went to
Yeah.
go turn the page, because I don't know how to set the chalk. Why does it keep stopping? Whatever.
We see fine. We see
Spray.
fine.
oh, it's
Yeah,
a spray. Use lacquer spray for that.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Yeah. Just do the lacquer spray on it, on top of it, and then it will be fixed. Yeah.
When you
Oh,
finished,
okay.
when you finished. Yeah.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. And then this one, gosh, what is?
No, your screen is
So
blank.
you put the camera off. Yeah.
No, I didn't. It's like my phone is freezing up.
Yeah.
It says now it says it failed to start my video camera, whatever.
Yeah. Are you
Oh,
low
wow.
battery maybe?
No,
Oh.
no, I need a new phone. This thing is over 4 years old. So yeah, it's done. It's not going to show you anything else. When
Yeah.
it gets to that point, it's true. I have to restart my phone when it does that. So, it's old, they're not designed to last because they want our money.
Yeah.
So anyway, okay,
Yeah.
I got to scoot because we've got a
Yes.
bunch of errands to run. Now I'm going to have to go find spray. Okay.
We want to see your writing, so yeah, we'll use that as a as a theme. It's very powerful to share as you go along. Very, very powerful. Lots of value
I'm
to
sorry,
it.
I didn't hear you.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Brilliant. Yeah, you're brilliant.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I'll let you
Bye-bye.
guys go.
Okay.
Very
See you
cool.
guys.
Cool.
Okay, love you guys.
Time.
Bye-bye.
Look forward to
Bye.
next time. Bye-bye, sir. Bye-bye. 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 Brilliant. 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 Okay, it's gonna leave.